He's the founder of the company that's probably the biggest tool creator for Microsoft Access developers. And he's a speaker here at Access DevCon about the image of Access. And I'm very, very pleased to have him here, Luke Chung.
Thank you very much for having me, Phil.
Yeah.
Pleasure being here.
Yeah, first, can you tell us a little bit how you got in contact with Microsoft Access and what made you choose Microsoft Access as one of the core tools to build your whole company around it?
Yes, so my company is FMS, and we are located in Vienna, Virginia. We're in Vienna, Austria, so this is a pleasant place to be. It's just outside Washington, D.C., and we're celebrating our 30th year in business this year. So we were in business, started in 1986, which was before Microsoft Access. Microsoft Access debuted in 1992. And prior to that, we had been building database products in the DOS world. When Access came out, it took the industry by storm. People don't remember, at that point, Microsoft had zero market share in the database market. It was controlled by Borland, which owned Paradox and DBase. They were the big players and we were partners with them. And I was actually at the 1992 Comdex launch of Microsoft Access done by Bill Gates. And prior to that, I was meeting with the people from Borland, the president and the CEO of Borland, asking them whether they were involved with this, knew what was happening, and they said that they weren't worried, which almost made me turn around and go home right then and there because I knew they were in big trouble. We had been beta testers of Microsoft Access, and I just loved it. I thought it was a high productivity tool. Obviously, it was on Windows, which was brand new back then, and it really made it easy to create functional solutions, database solutions that end users could create on their own and developers could enhance with some programming. So we saw that technology, we went back, looked at the market and tried to decide what we could create first. And the first product we created was called, at that time, Total Access, which has evolved into Total Access Analyzer. And that was a tool set that we decided we needed in order to create great access solutions. And what it does is it basically analyzes your access database to see what's wrong with it, what can be done to improve it, how it works so that you can have a little bit more control over what's being developed. And it's one of those things I think is necessary as a professional developer to not have to do those things manually. And that's been our agenda the whole time, is how do we increase productivity among Access developers so that they can focus on the really unique business layer parts of the application and not the routine, mundane, oh, I forgot to do this or that, or I renamed a field and now my form doesn't work. You know, those things should be caught automatically. It's too bad Access doesn't do it, but we've built the tools to help that. And then through that process, that got great success. We now have 12 different products for Microsoft Access that's evolved over time. And a lot of that was based on customer feedback. You know, we have customers all around the world, enthusiasts of Microsoft Access. They give us feedback on what can help them be more productive, what they're looking for, and we try to respond to that.
Yeah. Okay. I personally got the impression that especially the Microsoft Access developers are rather reluctant to rely on any third-party tools, especially if they have to purchase them and spend money on them. Mm-hmm. Do you think my impression is correct?
I think that goes beyond Access developers. I think most developers, most programmers would like to do things on their own. You know, I think there's a sense of, I'd rather code it on my own than rely on something else, especially if it's a black box. And I think, with the advent of the internet, a lot of us just do searches on the internet to try to find solutions. Yeah, it's okay to do that. But paying for it is another level, and I think one of the challenges that we face is, when we create a product, and we create it in a very professional environment, we have a whole development process, documentation process, testing process, oftentimes a beta process. it costs us tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of dollars to build some of these products. So it's really our fault if we can't present the value proposition for somebody to spend a few $100s when we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. So, you know, if our Total Access Analyzer product can help you catch some errors before you ship your database so that your users don't encounter those. I mean, those errors exist whether you use our product or not. But if we can help you improve the quality of the product, then that should be worth something to you. Or if not you, your client, your boss, your reputation, and so on. So, you know, we have our Total Visual Sourcebook product has a code library, you know, hundreds of thousands of lines of code, hundreds of modules that you can add into your application, royalty-free. You know, it's for a few $100s. Well, it comes down to what's the value of your time? What's the value of your time to your employer or to your client? You know, if you wanted to do something with, I don't know, XML, or you said, well, you could spend your time to write the code to do it yourself. Or you could take our code, copy and paste it into your application, and use it. And if you don't like a piece of it, you can adjust it. But it's a very different quality from finding code on the internet. Right? 'Cause, I mean, I look for code on the internet, but the quality isn't consistent. The way people write their code isn't consistent. The variables aren't named with the same naming convention. You know, we've built something that's a professional code library that's consistent, written by multiple developers, but it feels and looks like it's written by one person. And so there's a value to that. And I understand when people don't want to do that. It's our job to make sure people understand the value of that. We've been around for 30 years. We're going to stand behind it. It's a different kind of solution. And I think the people that purchase it do appreciate that. Otherwise, they wouldn't come back to get more.
Yeah, you already mentioned code quality. You've got more Access developers as your customers than anybody else except Microsoft. So from that knowledge of a very, very good, great group of customers being Access developers, have you got the impression that the average code quality that Access and VBA developers produce is not particularly good, especially if you consider readability and maintainability?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you're on the right track there with the quality of Access VBA developers. Of course, there's a wide range of developers. There are people who are quite professional and have been professionally trained or educated on how to write code, how to write procedures, how to write documentation, how to do error handling, and some of the basics that one would expect in code development. But then there are others who are just starting out, right? They may have come from Excel. They may have never written code before. They don't know what a loop is. They don't, you know, they're just starting out. And the great thing about Access is that people at all of those levels can create solutions. You know, we want to welcome them into the Access community because let's just say your alternative is .NET. Many Access users will never be able to make that leap to become a .NET programmer, right? The chasm is too wide to be able to even get one piece of code functional. While in Access, you know, people may start out with a couple of macros or they start out with some code for an event and, you know, they get a button to open up another form and that's actually a very exciting and empowering experience if you've never done that before, right? And so you get something to work, you get something to automate, you get, you know, you're able to run 3 or 4 queries together in a row without having to do it manually, and that gets you one level into the process of automation. And you know, Access allows you to grow with that so that hopefully, you know, as a developer, you're learning new and best practices so you can take yourself to the next level each time, without having to learn everything before you can do one thing.
Yeah. Would you agree if I say, but most developers stop at some point? They only further their technical knowledge. They used to work with record sets and data before, now they work with XML and then they learn how to work with XML, but they are only progressing at the technical level, broadening their technical expertise, but they are not going forward in a way to improve the architecture of their solutions and to improve the readability and the stability. Would you agree that that is a common problem, especially with Access and VBA developers?
Well, I would say that that's a common problem across all developers. You know, I mean, people write crappy code in every platform, whether it's professional solutions like .NET or, you know, Oracle or SAP. I mean, people create great solutions, people create crap. I mean, the technology really doesn't make a difference. People are under pressure. They have to create something. They have to get something done. It works for whatever the primary reason is. They're not worried about the exceptions or the outliers, and they move on to the next thing. People aren't thinking of writing documentation so that somebody else behind them will come in and take care of it. We see that a lot, especially with people who are much more code-oriented than database-oriented. You know, rather than writing queries, they write a lot of code because that's what they're used to. They're used to going through things record by record and, you know, a cursor perspective as opposed to set perspective from running a big query. And so, you know, that's probably a bigger issue when people don't understand databases and they only understand coding, right? And then the other side is people just don't have the training for writing code. I mean, Office and VBA in the editor turned off the option to require variable declarations.
Yeah, by default. Very, very bad.
That's bad, but they had so many support calls for people that didn't understand dim x as integer before they started. They just let people use x and their support went way down because people weren't even trained or didn't even understand how to do that. And I would presume Microsoft just decided, you know what, that's not our business to train these people to do that. But obviously, you know, as we progress and adopt best practices, those things become a fundamental part of all our development. And so I think part of this is, as developers, we should always be looking for ways to improve. As a matter of fact, that applies to everything in life. You know, the people who are the most confident, the people who seemingly are the most successful are the ones who hire coaches to get themselves better, right?
Yeah.
While people who are more insecure get upset when you tell them they're not doing something perfectly, right? But Michael Jordan wants a coach to tell him how he can be a little bit better. And he's already great, right? So it's just a different perspective. I'm always in growth mode. I'm always feeling like things are never perfect. It could always be better. And I'm always fascinated to learn from other people's mistakes. You know, and that's one of the things that we've tried to do in our Total Access Analyzer product over the years, is when we encounter a bug, whether it's in our custom solutions or in our products, I'm always wondering, you know, is there a way we could have caught that in an automated way so that it didn't go live? And if we can, then we add it into Total Access Analyzer so that it catches those before we ship.
Yeah.
Right? You know, one of the recent things we added was, you know, this issue of a master form and subform, and how you refer to the master field and the linked child fields. And you know, you want to link it to the child field in the subform as the text box and not the field, or vice versa. I can't even remember.
Yeah,
but it messes up one way or the other if you don't do it right. It's very easy to forget and do it wrong, but now we automatically catch that and say, hey, you know, we're not saying it's wrong, but you may want to look at this because we know it's a problem in some cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you kind of half answered my next question, because when I think about the topic, so I asked myself, is the root cause or the best route to improve the code quality of the average Access developer, is it rather that we need more kind of education and awareness about code quality to kind of show the people you should absolutely enable option explicit to declare variables, or is it rather the other way around that is the best approach to make them write better code? Do we need better tools like your Total Access Analyzer that kind of points people to the problems in their code and then makes them think about it and kind of come to the conclusion that they rather should declare their variables?
Right.
What is the best approach to improve? What do you think?
Well, I think people are very different. Some people are book people, right? They want to learn everything, they want to know everything before they write one line of code. And other people learn more by experience. And they would learn much more if we went into their code. And of course, Access is more than code. It's your objects and everything else around it.
Absolutely.
And to go into that and say, hey, here's a better way to do things, right? But they don't want a list of 500 ways to do things in an abstract perspective. They want to know, oh, I should have this table with a primary key that's, an identity field, as opposed to a text field, or I shouldn't have 5 fields combined together as a primary key, right? I mean, those are some basic kind of database things, and they wouldn't know that necessarily if they read it in a book or saw it online. It doesn't become real until you say, oh, that's why I'm having trouble with this one table. And there is a better way to do it, because oftentimes we just don't know there's a better way to do it. A lot of people have never seen good code, with good comments and good error handling. They've never seen it, so why would they ever know how to do it? And so I think that's the combination of things that we're trying to do, on our website, to provide education, it's free, on how to adopt best practices or follow best practices, or what are best practices, and then to have products and tools that help people pinpoint those issues and improve it inside their applications.
Yeah, great. Do you think we should add anything? Is there anything that you think needs to be said to complement this topic, or do we think that we covered that fairly thoroughly now?
Well, I think one area of the Access community are people who don't code at all, right? They're just trying to get their job done. They were trying to do things in Excel. Excel couldn't do what they needed to do, or got too big or unwieldy, and they discovered, oh, a database. I can keep one customer list and link it to another table, and when someone changes their email address or phone number, I change it in one place. I don't have to change it in 50 places like I used to in my Excel spreadsheet, right? So that's a big advance for somebody to go from a flat file spreadsheet type environment into a relational database. No code necessary, just learning how to query. And we're seeing that migration over time. It used to be the Access community was much more developer focused, a lot more developers in the community, and a smaller percentage of end users. Now we see a much higher percentage of end users that just want to accomplish some basic things, write reports, disseminate data, do some data entry, and a lot of developers, as you know, have kind of grown and graduated from Access into SQL Server, .NET, other platforms, which is fine because we just look at that as people like moving through school. Some people stay, some people move on, but there are other people in the flow, and that's okay. But so some of our products which are more end user oriented, like our Total Access emailer program in particular, which does email blasts. So you have a list of names and contacts and data and their email address, and we have a system that allows you to send an email out to everybody in the list and personalize it. So you can take their first name, last name, put it in.
Very important to novice users.
Right, put it in their subject, and we actually have the ability to attach a report as a PDF filtered for each recipient. Right, so each person gets their invoice, let's say. You wouldn't want to send somebody else's invoice to a customer, but an end user would have a lot of trouble doing that on their own to try to break that up at scale. And so, for instance, our Total Access emailer program, which has both a end user component and then also a developer side to automate that, we're seeing more and more people getting the end user side because they really don't understand how to use the VBA side because they don't know how to do that. And that has changed over time and indicates more people are on the end user side.
Yeah, I fully agree. Okay, Luke. Thank you very much for this interview.
Well, thank you for having me. I think it's going to be a fun conference.
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay.